Jessica Harper had built her empire from scratch. As the CEO of a leading international airline, her days were always packed with meetings, calls, and decisions that could make or break her business. That day wasn't supposed to be any different until she got the call. A deal she'd been negotiating for months was suddenly on the verge of collapse. Her team in London had hit a wall, and the investors were threatening to pull out. Jessica knew this was no ordinary situation. If the deal fell apart, it wouldn't just cost her millions, it would shatter the reputation she'd spent years building. No one else could fix this. It had to be her. But it wasn't just about the deal. Jessica took every challenge personally. Being underestimated, dismissed, or disrespected wasn't new to her, and every success was her way of proving the doubters wrong. This wasn't just business, it was personal. Normally, she'd have an assistant or a team of advisors with her. But this time, there wasn't a second to waste. Coordinating schedules or calling for her driver would slow her down. With her laptop, phone, and a small carry-on bag, Jessica jumped into her car and sped toward the airport. She trusted herself to handle things alone, just like she always had. In her world, quick decisions were the difference between success and failure. What she didn't realize was that this choice, to go alone, would lead to a confrontation that would test her patience and power in ways she hadn't imagined. Jessica Harper reached the airport entrance in record time, her heels clicking against the pavement as she rushed toward the main doors. Her focus was laser-sharp. She had minutes to check in and get through security. But just as she stepped inside, a voice cut through the air like a blade. "Ma'am, stop right there," barked Officer Bradley Carter, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a smug expression plastered across his face. He stood with his arms crossed, blocking her path. Jessica glanced at him, confused. "I'm in a hurry. My flight leaves in." "Did I ask for an explanation?" Bradley interrupted, raising an eyebrow. His tone dripped with condescension. "Step aside. We need to check who you are and why you're rushing like that." Jessica exhaled sharply, trying to keep her composure. "I don't have time for this. I'm traveling for business, and my flight is about to leave." Bradley smirked. "Business? Really? You don't look like the business type." He eyed her small carry-on bag and shook his head. "Maybe you're late because you were busy shopping or something." Jessica's patience thinned. "Excuse me? I don't need to justify myself to you. I'm an international traveler, and this is not how passengers should be treated." "International traveler?" Bradley chuckled, as if the idea was absurd. "Listen, lady, you can't just waltz in here like you own the place. Show me your ticket, or we'll have a real problem." Jessica shot him a glare, but pulled her ticket from her bag, holding it out with a firm hand. "Here. Now, can I go?" Bradley snatched the ticket, squinting at it as if searching for a reason to deny her. "You know, this doesn't prove much. You could have printed it from anywhere. People like you always find a way to." "People like me?" Jessica cut him off, her voice sharp now. "What exactly do you mean by that?" Bradley shrugged, his smirk growing wider. "Relax. I'm just saying you don't look like someone who'd be catching an international flight. No need to get defensive." Jessica clenched her fists, her voice steady but icy. "You are wasting my time. Either let me through, or I'll make sure your supervisor hears about this." Bradley hesitated for a moment, then reluctantly handed back the ticket. "Fine. Go ahead, but don't blame me if you miss your flight." Jessica didn't respond. She snatched her ticket and walked away, her anger simmering as she realized the clock had run out. Her flight had already left. Jessica's flight was gone. The announcement echoed in the terminal, confirming her worst fear. She turned back toward Officer Bradley, who was leaning casually against the security counter with a satisfied smirk. He didn't even bother to hide his amusement. "You're still here?" he said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Thought you'd be running after that plane by now." Jessica's heels clicked sharply on the tile floor as she approached him. Her voice was cold and precise. "Do you have any idea what you've just cost me?" That was an international meeting, months of planning, millions on the line. Bradley interrupted with a scoff. "Oh, millions? Sure. What were you pitching, some discount products?" "Please." Her jaw tightened. "I don't have to explain myself to someone who barely knows how to do his job." Bradley raised an eyebrow, feigning mock offense. "Lady, do you know who you're talking to? I've been in this position for 10 years. I've dealt with real criminals, not entitled women throwing tantrums over missed flights." Jessica's eyes narrowed. "You think him entitled? You're the one standing there, abusing your authority, judging people by how they look. You stop me for no reason except your own prejudice." He laughed, the sound grating. "Prejudice? Oh, give me a break. You're mad because you got caught running in like some VIP. This isn't your personal red carpet." "I am a VIP," Jessica said firmly, her voice rising. "But you were too busy stereotyping me to notice." Bradley's smirk faltered, but he quickly recovered. "VIP, huh? That's cute. Next time, try leaving on time instead of blaming security for your bad planning." Jessica took a step closer, her words like steel. "Next time, try doing your job without making assumptions. You're not a gatekeeper for who belongs where." Bradley folded his arms, his confidence visibly shaken. "Listen, I don't have to take this from you. You missed your flight, that's on you." "No," Jessica snapped, her tone unwavering. "This is on you. And trust me, you'll answer for it." The surrounding passengers had stopped to watch the exchange, whispering among themselves. Bradley shifted uncomfortably under their stares, but Jessica held his gaze, unyielding. Something in her expression told him this wasn't over, not by a long shot. Jessica stood still for a moment, her frustration boiling over into a sharp, calculated calm. Without a word, she pulled out her phone, dialed a number, and walked a few steps away from Officer Bradley. He watched her with a smug grin, leaning against the counter like he had all the power in the world. "Calling your lawyer?" Bradley called out mockingly. "Good luck with that. You're not the first person to get mad at me for doing my job." Jessica ignored him, her voice steady as she spoke into the phone. "I need the jet at Terminal 5. Immediately. Make sure my security team is with you. And tell the crew to prepare for takeoff." Bradley's smirk wavered as she hung up and returned, her confidence unshaken. "You're still here?" she said, mimicking his earlier tone. "Thought you'd be enjoying your little victory by now." "What's that supposed to mean?" he snapped, suddenly defensive. "It means you made a mistake," Jessica replied, her voice sharp but controlled. "And you're about to find out just how big." Bradley laughed nervously. "Oh, please. You're not scaring anyone with your little phone call. What, is someone coming to pat you on the back for missing your flight?" Jessica glanced toward the runway. "No, they're coming to clean up your mess." Moments later, the roar of jet engines filled the terminal as a sleek, private jet bearing the airline's logo descended onto the tarmac. The previously smug look on Bradley's face evaporated, replaced by confusion and disbelief. A small team of uniformed security personnel entered the terminal, walking directly toward Jessica. They flanked her, greeting her respectfully. What is this?" Bradley stammered, looking between the jet and the security team. His arrogance was crumbling, and Jessica could see the cracks in his confidence. "This," she said, her voice cutting through his panic, "is what real authority looks like. Something you'll never understand. The terminal staff, now gathering out of curiosity, whispered among themselves. One of the security officers leaned in and addressed Jessica. "The jet is ready, Ms. Harper. Shall we proceed?" Bradley's jaw dropped. "Ms. Harper? Wait, you're—" Jessica turned to him, her expression cold and unforgiving. "The owner of this airline. The person you decided to humiliate because you couldn't see past your own biases." Bradley froze, his face pale as Jessica gestured toward the staff. "Gather everyone. Now, we're going to have a little talk about accountability." For the first time, Bradley looked scared. Jessica didn't flinch. This was only the beginning. The crowd of terminal staff and onlookers stood in stunned silence as Jessica stood at the center, her calm composure a stark contrast to the tension in the air. Officer Bradley, now visibly uneasy, lingered at the edge of the gathering, his earlier arrogance nowhere to be seen. Jessica turned to face the staff, her voice clear and sharp. "Let me introduce myself, since it seems some people here have trouble understanding who they're dealing with. My name is Jessica Harper. I am the CEO and owner of this airline, the same one you're all working for." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Bradley's face turned ashen, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "Wait, you're the owner?" he stammered, disbelief dripping from every word. Jessica's gaze fixed on him like a hawk eyeing prey. "Yes, I am." "And you?" "You're the officer who decided to mock and humiliate me, assuming I was lying. You let your prejudice blind you to the simple fact that I was a passenger, just like anyone else." "I didn't," Bradley started, but Jessica cut him off. "You didn't what?" she snapped, her voice cold and unyielding. "You didn't think I belonged here? You didn't think someone like me could hold a ticket for an international flight? Or maybe you didn't think at all." The staff exchanged uncomfortable glances, and Bradley's nervous laughter broke the silence. "Look, it's just a misunderstanding. I mean, how was I supposed to know?" Jessica's tone sharpened like a blade. "You weren't supposed to know who I am. You were supposed to treat me like any other passenger, with respect. But instead, you decided to play gatekeeper, holding me up because you assumed I didn't deserve to be here." Bradley's excuses tumbled out in a rush. "I was just doing my job. You were in a hurry, acting suspicious." "Suspicious?" Jessica's eyes narrowed. "I was rushing because of an emergency. That's what airports are for, people catching flights. But you didn't see that. You saw a black woman you thought you could talk down to." The murmurs in the crowd grew louder. Jessica turned to the gathered employees. "This isn't just about me. It's about the culture we allow to exist in our workplaces. Racism, bias, and disrespect have no place here or anywhere." She paused, letting her words sink in, before addressing Bradley directly. "And you, Officer Carter, are about to learn that lesson the hard way." Bradley swallowed hard, sweat beading on his forehead. Jessica's authority was undeniable now, and the balance of power had shifted completely. Jessica stood tall, her gaze sharp as she addressed the group gathered in the terminal. The weight of her words hung heavy in the air, and everyone, especially Officer Bradley, felt it. "Let's get one thing straight," Jessica began, her tone as firm as steel. "What happened here today isn't just about me missing a flight. It's about a culture of arrogance and discrimination that's been allowed to thrive for far too long." Bradley shifted uneasily, trying to salvage the situation. "Look, Ms. Harper, I didn't mean." Jessica cut him off with a wave of her hand. "Save it. Your intentions don't matter. What matters are your actions, and those actions were unacceptable." The murmurs from the staff grew louder, a mix of shock and agreement. Jessica turned to the employees. How many of you have witnessed something like this before? How many times have people in positions of power used their authority to humiliate someone who they thought wouldn't fight back? A few staff members hesitated before nodding. Bradley looked around, his confidence crumbling further. "This is getting blown out of proportion," he muttered. Jessica's voice snapped like a whip. "Out of proportion? You detained me, mocked me, delayed me, and cost me valuable time, all because you assumed I didn't belong. And now you're trying to downplay it? No, this ends here." She pulled out her phone and called her team. Within moments, a senior airport official arrived, looking flustered. "Ms. Harper, I'm so sorry for this incident," he began. Jessica held up a hand. "Sorry isn't enough. Apologies won't fix the damage caused by people like him," she said, pointing at Bradley. "What I want is change. Effective immediately, your staff will undergo mandatory diversity and bias training. And this officer," she turned her glare to Bradley, "is suspended pending a full investigation." Bradley's face turned red. "Suspended? You can't." "I can," Jessica interrupted sharply. "I own the airline, and I have the authority to ensure that no one else is treated the way I was today." The official nodded quickly. "Understood, Ms. Harper. Well, implement everything you've requested." Jessica glanced back at Bradley, who stood there speechless. "And one more thing," she added. "Your behavior isn't just an embarrassment to yourself, it's a stain on this entire airport. I expect a full report on how you plan to rebuild trust with every passenger you've disrespected." Bradley opened his mouth to speak, but found no words. The crowd watched as Jessica turned and walked toward her waiting jet, her head held high. She'd made her point, and the consequences were clear. No more tolerance for prejudice, no more silence in the face of injustice. Jessica boarded her private jet, her composure unshaken despite the chaos left behind. As the engines roared to life, she gazed out of the window, the terminal staff and passengers still watching in stunned silence. She had faced humiliation, prejudice, and arrogance, but she had also shown that dignity and strength could shatter even the most ingrained biases. Back at the airport, the staff began to reflect on what had just happened. Jessica's words echoed in their minds. Racism, bias, and disrespect have no place here or anywhere. They realized that her actions weren't just about holding one officer accountable, but about creating a culture where respect and fairness were the norm, not exceptions. For Bradley, the consequences were life-changing. His suspension forced him to confront the damage caused by his prejudice. It wasn't just about losing a job, it was about losing his credibility, his confidence, and the comfort of his ignorance. He had no choice but to rethink the way he judged others. Jessica's story became a lesson for everyone involved. Respect is not optional. Assumptions based on race, gender, or status only expose ignorance. True power lies in staying composed, standing tall, and demanding accountability when it matters most. Subscribe for more stories like this. Please note this story is not real. It's a work of fiction only for education and entertainment purposes.